It's the Mike Schickman Show. News Talk 550 and 92.1 WSVA.
Mike Schickman Show on WSVA for a Wednesday. Very pleased to have as our next guest a member of Project 21. We've had a number of guests over the years from Project 21. He is a political consultant with Serious Campaigns, has over a decade of experience organizing for federal, state, local candidates. He's been highlighted in the Washington Times, U.S. News, Fox News, Teen Vogue, among other publications. He's father to an Army veteran and an elected member of the Franklin County Republican Central Committee. And we welcome Richard Holt to the Mike Schickman Show. How are you?
I'm great, Mike. How are you doing?
Thanks for having me. I am doing wonderfully. There are so many things that we could talk about. But one of the things that kind of gets lost, we have so many racial battles in this country. It seems that we've kind of forgotten things that are important. And one of those things that is important is something called Juneteenth. And it is something that I think more Americans should be aware of because of its importance to a large portion of our population.
Oh, yes, I agree.
What is Juneteenth, to tell the uninitiated?
Well, the Juneteenth is a celebration that's based on what we've come to celebrate as Juneteenth has been the coming together of the black community to celebrate the end of slavery and the coming out of slavery. And it has been a tradition since, I believe, 2 years after the Gettysburg, or since the Emancipation Proclamation. And it has become a cultural tradition, especially at the end of the Civil Rights Movement. I think it got a lot more steam in black communities all over the country. We have picnics, we have cookouts for it. It's almost like the 4th of July for black America that day. And it has come to really embody coming together of the black community to celebrate how far we've really come since those old slavery days. And it's a deeply meaningful celebration.
Yeah, I have to tell you, Richard, I didn't see much in the media this past Monday.
Well, you normally don't. I think that's unfortunate that the media doesn't give a lot of coverage to such an important holiday, really, for all Americans. It doesn't take just someone black to appreciate the end of slavery. It takes all of us. And you're right. There isn't enough media attention brought to that.
And it's important, and the historical importance is one of those things that, as a student of history myself, I'm appalled we don't realize it. It really is a commemoration of what took place June 19th, 1865, when Union troops in Galveston, Texas, informed residents the Civil War was over and that the Emancipation Proclamation had abolished slavery 2.5 years earlier in the southern states. And so much celebration over the years for this great event, and yet, you'd think that'd be a lead on the 19th of June. Instead, probably because we had more shootings overseas, but still, I've done a show on it almost every year because I see its importance, and we talk about the racial disharmony. It's so important to understand what a big day this is, especially to Native African Americans, the folks who came from those slaves, who came from those families, and a day of celebration and freedom. It's like a July 4th for African Americans.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And it is a tragedy that it's not discussed more, especially with the racial climate we have today. I really feel that the ability of the left, especially, to create such racial disharmony or to emphasize every instance of any kind of discrimination into a national epidemic, you think that they would bring this up, but of course they don't.
Well,
and
you got to blame conservatives as well. It should be something marked by more conservatives of their brethren, because Project 21 has been representing black conservatives for many, many years.
Oh, absolutely. And I think it's done a tremendous job. And when they had mentioned they wanted to talk about Juneteenth all over the country, I was really excited about that because it is such an important holiday.
And it's an opportunity to share and a historical memory of a good thing. We've seen a lot about tearing down statues in history and the Confederacy and all of that, but this was a day of celebration and really for mankind when one of the biggest perpetrators of the time of slavery had to give it up. And, people were able to step up and talk about these issues, as well as talk about the issues that still divide us.
The ability for Black Americans to really engage in a dialogue about our experience is kind of dwindled, I think, with the poor historical education that we really get in our schools nowadays, where you've got people who aren't really sure who we fought the Revolutionary War against, and they can't name all 50 states. And I think there's been a bit of a degradation of education overall, and I think that's what helps contribute to missing this holiday entirely.
Well, and again, it's something that should be celebrated by all Americans, not just African Americans or the children or grandchildren, actually, and probably great grandchildren by now of former slaves. Let's talk about some of the other big issues when we talk about this. Do you find that now you're in Ohio, correct?
Yes, that's right.
What kind of Juneteenth celebrations did you have in Ohio?
Oh, well, I traditionally go down to a small town called Gallipolis in southern Ohio every year for a celebration down there. And it's held at the fairgrounds. We get a couple thousand people from around the region, and we just cook out. There's vendors. We have Abraham Lincoln reenactors. It's kind of your typical small town kind of fair that takes place. And you do get some people from all ethnicities who come to celebrate the event down there in this little town by West Virginia, and that's what I've seen down there. Here in the city, though, I'm in Columbus now. In the city, they'll have kind of a city version of that with the cookouts and you'll have a large section of the black neighborhood come out, but you don't see a lot of white folk there. It's not like it's not as community driven, I think. In Columbus as it is down there in southeastern Ohio.
Well, I know here in Virginia, it depends where you are. I know Richmond, it's more of a big deal than it is in where we are right now in Harrisonburg, Virginia. But it's something that should be celebrated. Maybe programs like this will give people an opportunity to think about that. Mm-hmm. Richard, tell me about Project 21.
Well, Project 21 is really working to help show America that there are black conservatives. And, 10 years ago, there were a lot fewer of us, and the tide is starting to turn. But Project 21 has done a good job, I think, of helping to represent black members of the Republican community and the conservative movement overall to really have a voice, to have a presence in the media on shows like yours, where we can be seen and we can be heard and we can give our unique perspective. And I think that's really the highlight of Project 21 and the great work that's being done there.
Why'd you join?
I was originally pulled into it
okay.
by a friend of mine because he says, Rich, Project 21 is this fantastic thing. You got to do it. I didn't actually know what I was getting into until I had a good meeting with the leadership there, and they said they gave me what they were trying to accomplish, and I thought, well, this is great. I really like what you're doing, and next thing you know, they gave me I think I was talking to a Washington Times about I was running for state legislature at the time in southeastern Ohio, and that's pretty much what got me started. Then they asked me if I was interested in writing a blog, and which ended up on Breitbart, which was featured on Fox News, and it just kind of went from there. And so they kind of slowly pulled me in until I was in 100%, and I'm really glad that they did.
Well, it's not easy being conservative in the mainstream media. It's even tougher to be a black conservative. I mean, look at the abuse. Look at the abuse Justice Thomas goes through. Not to mention anybody else. The people who were supporting Donald Trump had to basically wear crash helmets anywhere they went because the abuse was so heavy. Mm-hmm. It's just very difficult.
Yeah. It is, and there's the racism that I have experienced, and I've seen other minorities overall experience, just because we reject the democratic racial identification with the Democratic Party is really disturbing. I think they prefer a type of groupthink with their racial politics, and when you turn away from that, you're met with hostility. It's kind of like it's very challenging. And J.C. Watts talked a lot about it in his book, What Color is a Conservative, and some of the horrible treatment that he received. And I'll never forget those cartoon caricatures of Condoleezza Rice, with the big teeth and the big lips when they're making fun of her. And if that was a right-wing publication, they'd have burned the place down.
That's no doubt.
No doubt. The left, they can do all these things. So there is a double standard there that's frustrating.
It is a shame. But I appreciate you joining us today. How can people find out more about Project 21?
Well, they can visit the National Center for Public Policy Research .org, project21.org. I believe is the website for Project 21. That's the best way to learn about what we're doing. And you can always just Google Project 21, and it'll pop right up there in the top of the Google searches.
Richard Holt, a real pleasure. Come back and join us again, won't you?
All right. Thanks for having me, Mike.
That's Richard Holt of Project 21, and happy Juneteenth, everyone.